There's a certain magic in the woods during winter, especially at Christmas. The crisp air, the silence broken only by the crunch of snow underfoot, and the way the trees stood elegantly cloaked in their frosty blankets. It was the perfect setting for a romantic getaway, a place where time slowed down and the rest of the world felt a million miles away. As we arrived, it felt like stepping into a holiday card. The cabin was charming, with smoke curling lazily from the chimney and a wreath of pine cones on the door. Inside, the air smelled of cedarwood, and the crackle of a fire greeted us like an old friend. "This is perfect," I said, my breath fogging in the chill as Cody unloaded our bags. He grinned at me, his cheeks ruddy from the cold. "Wait until tomorrow," he said. "I've got something special planned." I was curious, but Cody refused to say more no matter how much I begged. "It's a surprise," he teased, his blue eyes sparkling like the frost on the windows. The next morning, he handed me a pair of thick woolen socks and a mug of steaming coffee before dragging me outside. The world was a pristine wonderland of white, and I couldn't help but laugh when Cody caught snowflakes on his tongue like a little kid. "You always said you wanted to cut down your own Christmas tree," Cody said, lifting an axe and motioning toward the forest with an eager grin. "Let's go find the perfect one." "That sounds amazing," I replied, already envisioning the adventure. "But how will we decorate it?" Grinning like he'd been waiting for this moment, he pulled out a duffel bag stuffed with colored lights and ornaments. "Ta-da!" he declared, looking incredibly pleased with himself. "Wow," I said, genuinely impressed. "You really did think of everything?" "Don't give me all the credit," Cody said. "Your mom helped out with the ornaments." I gave him a big kiss, delighted at the thought of him conspiring with my mother to create this magical weekend. The walk into the woods felt like entering another realm. The trees towered above us, their branches heavy with snow. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting golden rays that danced on the icy ground. Cody told me stories about the woods as we walked, his voice dropping to an eerie whisper. He spoke of strange sightings, ghostly figures that lurked between the trees, and the mysterious disappearances that gave the forest its sinister reputation. "People say these woods are cursed," he said. "If you listen closely, you might hear the spirits of the lost calling out, trying to find their way back." I laughed, brushing off the chill that ran up my spine. But as we moved deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. A shadow seemed to flit just beyond my vision, but when I turned, there was nothing there, only the stillness of the trees. "Did you see that?" I asked. "See what?" Cody tilted his head, smiling in a way that made me feel silly for being scared. I didn't press it. We finally found the perfect tree, its green branches thick and full. Cody swung the axe with a precision that mesmerized me, the rhythmic thwack cutting through the stillness of the forest. When the tree fell, the crash echoed in a way that the woods seemed momentarily stunned by the intrusion. I helped him drag it back to the cabin, my unease temporarily forgotten in the joy of decorating. Cody lit the fireplace while I unzipped the bag of ornaments and untangled the string of colored lights. We laughed at each other's childhood decorations, his little hand-painted snowman, my glittery reindeer with one antler missing. As we worked, the shadows outside thickened, the world beyond the window swallowed by night. The sense of magic began to shift, turning heavier, darker. I chalked it up to the eerie quiet of being so far from civilization. Later, Cody suggested we make cocoa and stargaze. "You can't see stars like this in the city," he said, leading me outside. He spread a blanket on the snow, and we lay back, the sky a breathtaking sprawl of diamonds. That's when I noticed Cody's expression change. His warm smile grew distant, his eyes unfocused. His fingers tightened around my hand, not gently, but with an unfamiliar strength. "Cody?" I asked, but he didn't answer. He stood abruptly, his movements stiff and mechanical. "She always liked the stars," he murmured, his voice cold and hollow. "What?" I scrambled to my feet, suddenly terrified. "She always liked the stars," he repeated, turning to face me. But the man before me wasn't Cody, not entirely. His face was the same, but his eyes, they glowed faintly, their warmth replaced by something ancient and unknowable. Who are you talking about?" I stammered, backing away. "She waited here," he said, his voice rising. "She waited for me, and I never came back." I ran for the cabin, heart pounding, but Cody, or whatever he had become, followed, his steps crunching heavily in the snow. Inside, I bolted the door and grabbed my phone, only to find no signal. The fireplace flickered violently, casting the room in dancing shadows that felt alive. Cody stood outside the window, staring at me, his breath fogging the glass. "Violet," he said, his voice cracking. "Let me in. I just want to talk." I wanted to believe him, but something primal inside me screamed to keep the door shut. "You're not Cody," I whispered, clutching the axe he'd used to cut down the tree. When I didn't respond, he slammed his fists against the door. "She never forgave me," he bellowed, "and now neither will you." Suddenly, the cabin seemed to shift around me. The walls blurred, the air filling with the metallic tang of blood. I was no longer alone. Shadows moved in the corners of the room, whispering in voices I couldn't understand. I stumbled backward, and my hand brushed against the tree we'd brought in earlier. Its branches felt wrong, brittle and sharp like bones. Cody, or the thing wearing his face, burst through the door, his eyes burning with rage. "You can't run," he roared, his voice echoing with layers, as if someone else was speaking through him. I swung the axe blindly, tears streaming down my face. "Leave me alone," I screamed. The blade connected with something, and a guttural scream filled the cabin. Cody fell to the ground, clutching his shoulder. His eyes flickered, the glow fading. "Violet?" he gasped, his voice his own again. I dropped the axe, shaking uncontrollably. "Cody, is it really you?" He nodded weakly, but before I could move, the shadow surged toward him, pulling him out the door. His screams echoed into the woods. I ran after him, but the snow swallowed my steps, and the trees closed around me. The forest, once magical, had turned into a labyrinth of terror. They never found Cody or his body. When search teams arrived, the cabin was empty, the woods eerily quiet. At night, when I close my eyes, I see him standing at the edge of the trees, whispering to me through the silence. I know he's still out there, waiting for me, especially at Christmas.